Hello and happy new year. Oh, we're just a few days into this year and most of you are probably not back at work yet, but I have been thinking about you and I'm so excited to welcome you to chapter 8 of Onward, Cultivate Compassion. And I know that I've already said a few times, like this chapter might be the most important one, but this one might be one of the most important ones. This one was one of the most powerful ones for me to write. There are so many topics in it that I needed to think about, including just what is compassion? How do we define compassion? How does compassion make us more resilient? What is self-compassion? That was a big one. How to deal with difficult people and have compassion. Like, do you have to how do you deal with them? Dealing with compassion, fatigue, and finally, the big one for me, a big one was forgiveness, which is in this chapter. And the disposition that's explored is perspective, which I think is definitely one of the key dispositions. But this combination of content was so powerful for me to dig into, and still is a year later. As I've said, I'm doing all the workbook activities along with Onward this year, and starting this month and really again reflecting on self-compassion, especially as we enter the new year. And there's so much, everywhere talk about resolutions and goals and intentions and vision boards and, jars in which you place memories and so on. And I do those and I love them and I'm all about that. And there's this message in them. In a lot of them, there's a tone. And I feel it in myself when I engage with them about not good enough. Like last year, did I make all my goals? Did I meet all my resolutions? Blah, blah, blah. There's this criticalness. There's this undertone of just like not enough. And I'm setting goals and resolutions because I do that. And I'm slightly obsessive with doing that kind of thing. And I also have a big milestone birthday coming up at the end of this year. In December, I'll turn 50. And so I have this whole year-long project called 50 by 50. 50 things I want to do before I turn 50. Anyway, it's just making me think so much about the cravings and desires and not being satisfied. So I'm bringing all that into this reflection this month on compassion and self-compassion and compassion for others and accepting people as they are. And wow, that's where I have to go into forgiveness. That's been a really big, deep. Someday I'm going to share and record the story of like my relationship with forgiveness, forgiving others, but not today. Today, I am welcoming you to this chapter. I read such a great book over break. I don't have it here with me because it's still right next to my bed and I'm in my office, called The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. And I just wrote about that in my latest Bright Morning newsletter, which in case you don't get, go sign up for because I have lots of reading recommendations, especially this month. But it's a great way for us to stay in touch. The Art of Gathering is one of the best books I've ever read. Changing my life, I think. It's all about meaningful connection, how to create more meaningful gatherings and connections with others. I really forgot where I was going with this, but it was connected to, I think what it was connected to was I want to hear from you. I crave meaningful connections. As I've said before, as I've said many, many times, excuse me, I don't apologize a whole lot, but excuse me for saying that again if you hear me say that all the time. But this is my office. This is where I write. This is where I wrote most of Onward. And it's a very strange, wonderful, lonely, exhilarating process because I'm just alone. And I'm like, will this resonate? Well, I feel the same way now creating videos. Like, hello, green dot. I love hearing from you, whether it's in the comments or an email or on social media, although I'm weaning myself from social media, so maybe not the best place to communicate. Or send me a YouTube video. You can do that as well and share your thoughts because I want to know how you engage with the content in this chapter. Tell me a story of forgiveness. I am still working on forgiving somebody who broke my heart. My heart is healing, has been healing, but there's still a lot for me to understand and explore there. Tell me about your exploration with compassion. What are your practices like? You know, in Onward and in my workshops, I often say compassion is a practice. We need to build it every day. It's like a muscle. It's something we need to exercise and build, right? It's a daily practice. It needs to be a daily practice. And in the last couple of months, I've really been practicing what I'm preaching. I've been incorporating these compassion meditations into my regular meditation practice every morning, and just a few minutes, and it's so fascinating. It's really making me aware of how often during my day I am holding compassion back from others, or finding limits on who I can be compassionate towards. It's really been kind of amazing. I think about myself as a pretty compassionate person. I think this meditation exercise incorporation of has just made me aware of I'm like, wow, without being self-critical, but I got a lot of room to grow in this compassion towards others. That's what I've been doing. So I'd love to know about your compassion practices. Just related to that, it's not in this chapter, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I started again using an app on my phone. I want to make sure I tell you the right one. I wrote it in the book, but I can't remember. Yeah, Gratitude 365. Because I'm trying to also revive my gratitude practice and make it a daily thing. And I love taking photos, the phone, you got it all the time. I really like that app. I think it's only available on an iPhone platform. But that's just something else that I just decided to tell you. Anyway, Happy New Year if you are watching this according to the calendared schedule for Onward. And I would love to hear from you. I hope you've had some really wonderful, restful, rejuvenating break. And yes, much love going into 2019. Take it into your schools and organizations when you go back.